obsessed and so obscure. I felt my head decapitate without a sense of it all. I'm stuck between two trees.
Welcome everyone to the 7th episode of Obsessed and So Obscure, a Matt Berry music podcast. I am Jessie and I am joined by Courtney.
Hi.
And Tara.
Hello.
And today we are going to be talking about music for Insomniacs. And as much as I absolutely love this album, I have been dreading doing this episode because what can you do for an episode that's like 100% instrumental? So it's going to be interesting. We might do things a little bit differently this time. We're going to try to break it down in chunks and talk about it in pieces. We also have a lot of interviews and quotes. So Matt actually wrote music for Insomniacs before he wrote Kill the Wolf. It actually came out in 2014 though, because Acid Jazz wanted him to do another mainstream album, or, you know, as mainstream as Kill the Wolf is, prior to doing music for Insomniacs, because they thought that people would think he was crazy if he just jumped right into this full instrumental. It was released originally in 2014 on blue, I believe it's translucent vinyl. It was very limited copies. Some of them were signed. And then it was released again in 2019 on white vinyl, which I think Courtney and I were extremely lucky because we may have gotten the last two reasonably priced, still sealed copies, like back to back. Now they're super expensive and hard to find.
I owe Jessie for this one because she talked me into buying like the last copy on Amazon. I was like, I don't know, it's $40. I don't think I want to spend that. And now it goes for close to $200.
Yeah, it's
oh my god,
crazy
really?
expensive.
Always
now.
Listen to Jessie is the moral here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you skywrite that? Because I feel like not enough people validate me.
That'll be the header on all of our social media.
Thank you. No, I feel like I've been a really bad influence on Courtney because we started collecting kind of around the same time. I started with Phantom Birds and then it really just escalated from there. And now every time I see something, I'm like, oh, look what I just found on Discogs.
You guys have way more stuff than I do, and I've been listening for 12 years or something.
I now
It's
officially
impressive.
have everything except for the original release of, well, not the original release because I do have the original release of Opium because that was part of the box set, but then I have, I don't have when it was actually released on its own, but I'm okay
That's
with
my
that.
holy grail. I still need Opium. I've got everything else.
I have.
I need Opium. You guys don't even like Opium. Oh my god.
I love Opium.
Okay. Love it.
Are you forgetting our Opium episode? I am pro Opium.
We kind of got into it too much during Witch Hazel, and I'm like, we never agree. Because that's what we did at one point back in the day, so long ago.
Feels so idyllic now.
We were just young pups.
Episode 2.
We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know what this would become. Hilarious.
Starry-eyed and idealistic.
Anyways.
So it came out on white vinyl in 2019. Increasingly hard to find now. And it was, of course, also released on CD, Digipack, and digitally as well.
I really want this album. I'll be honest, I'm not again, we all have talked about this, I don't love instrumentals, but the album artwork is just so perfection. It's
is.
I want it on my wall.
So let's talk about the artwork. Because
please.
this was painted by Matt himself. We're going to talk, after we talk about the main Music for Insomniacs album, we'll talk about the Music for Insomniacs Part 4 single, and the covers of both of these were painted by Matt, who, as many of you know, actually has a degree in painting from his college days at Nottingham Trent University. This is part of a larger series. There's quite a few videos from around this period before he moved out to the country where you can see his London flat and see that he has multiple paintings up from the Music for Insomniacs, or, we're calling it that, from this series where which used a lot of round, wide awake eyeballs kind of juxtaposed against sort of gradient backgrounds.
You can see it best, I think, in the making of Kill the Wolf video.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can really, it's just in that room, so there's the 3 paintings behind him, and it's amazing. I absolutely love it. I love the colors. I don't know, it's so cool. I'll show them because you guys can't see it, but my lock screen and my home screen. My lock screen is the main Music for Insomniacs, and my home screen is the Music for Insomniacs IV, and I usually get tired of looking at the same thing, but these have been my phone lock screen and home screen for almost 2 years now, and I'm still not tired of them.
Nice.
I look
They're
at them
really
every day.
evocative.
I love
Yeah, and
the
they
bright
feature
orange.
in Toast of London, right? At the back of in Jane's office.
Yes.
They do. That's right. You
Yes.
can see both paintings.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a little...
Yeah, and I
Easter
always
egg.
love them. I'd be like, I'm pointing out to my husband, I'm like, oh,
I think
look,
it was
it's
only in the
music for
first
Insomniacs.
season was the regular music for Insomniacs was on the wall,
Yeah.
and I think in another pub, I think it was in a colonial club shot where you can see a poster with the music for Insomniacs Part 4.
No, it was in Jane's office.
Was it
and I
part
remember
4
this.
ones
It was
too?
the scene where she was getting a massage by like, I think it was a couple of nude men. Because
nice.
that scene is just seared in my brain. And that's what's in the background. It's kind of in the corner of her office.
Have you
so-
watched The New Kids in the Hall yet? Talk about being seared in your brain. But that's a story
No,
for
but I
a
will now.
whole other
Because you said there was
episode.
wieners, so.
So many wieners. Anyway, that's a tangent. We don't need to go.
Insomnia is a really prominent recurring theme in Matt's music. It comes up quite a bit in the lyrics to The Small Hours and Night Terrors, which we'll be talking about in a few weeks. But this album is really inspired by and kind of conceived as a cure for his own insomnia. So we're going to be drawing from some different interviews where he really kind of discussed that experience and how this album came about and how this album sort of served as a self-cure for insomnia when some of the other suggestions he received were less than effective.
So this was taken from the press release for the album. Matt says, "Insomnia was something I suffered on my own, so I wanted the creation of this album to be an equally solitary experience. It had to be completely personal, so I knew I had to record every note myself." And then he goes on to say, so the Time Out magazine article, he was asked, "How did you sleep last night?" "Fine, I'm okay now. The last time I really suffered badly was 2012, when I made music for Insomniacs. A lot of people stare at the ceiling or listen to whale song or distant panpipes or all that cheesy shit, but it doesn't work. I was at my wit's end because there wasn't anything else to do other than go for a run, and I couldn't be arsed to do that. My studio is next to my bedroom. I didn't want to waste any more time, so I just went in there at, say, 3:15 a.m. I started just trying to sum up the atmosphere with sound, because it's a great time of night, dead time. There's no noise anywhere, and no one's going to get in touch with you. Before I knew it, I had a bunch of things that I could dovetail into one another cohesively." The interviewer asks, "It's unusual for a performer to want to send his audience to sleep." "Yeah, but that's good as far as I'm concerned. I would like to perform it live in someone's bedroom just to see firsthand whether it would actually work. Speaking of tiredness, it must be important for a recovering insomniac to have a good bed. What's yours like?" he was asked. "It's the best. My dad once said to me, spend all your money on a bed and a good pair of shoes, because if you're not in one, you're in the other." And that stuck with me.
He
and it sticks with me too.
He absolutely loves that quote. He said that so many times in different interviews.
Because it's such a dad quote too.
It
like,
really
it's just the daddest
is.
thing.
It is such dad advice, and I love that. It's so cute. And also, I mean, he says that his bed is great, but we all know that he loves shoes. So I think that he's either still working on finding that perfect pair of shoes, or he just really loves shoes.
Boots and sandals.
Yeah, sandals.
Which are kind of weird extremes, but...
Except for on the back of the cover where he's wearing red Chuck Taylors.
We were speculating before we started recording that he just forgot to change into his boots for that photo shoot. Because that's the only time you see him in sneakers.
It is. And then on the Music for Insomniacs 4, on the back cover, he's back in boots. But it's, I think, the same outfit, isn't it?
It is?
So,
Matt, come on to our show. These are the kind of questions we're going to ask you. They're very hard-hitting. We're going to be like, did you mean to wear those shoes?
The fans demand to know.
No, but I think it's really funny because I've never ever seen him wear those ever in any other time. Have I
Any
ever
other
seen him-
appearance.
No, but I love them. I mean, who doesn't love a good pair of Converse? I think that's a good look, and I think he should go back.
They really pop
approve.
against his black shirt.
Yeah, black shirt.
Yeah.
He's wearing like almost like a bootleg jean, surrounded by synthesizers and organs.
It's a good look.
It is a good look.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan.
Suits him.
There's your wardrobe advice for this episode.
That's
Sure,
your
he listens.
recommendations and fashion advice.
Yes.
You get it
Yeah.
all here.
Sure, he's listening and taking notes on this. Okay.
Kind of building on that, in a Guardian interview from May 2014, just a few days after that, he talked about how the insomnia started with anxiety about getting enough rest before an important appointment, and that worry kept him up, so he started watching films to distract himself. Then suddenly it was 3:30 and it was too late, and it just created this vicious cycle. He said, once you're past that stage, then it's a nightmare. I'd fall asleep at 4:30, and then I couldn't physically get up before 10 unless I had to. That isn't enough. I get into this bloody cycle where I'm so conscious of it that it's impossible to stop. So he decided to move into his studio next door and create the album that we're going to be discussing today. He said, I knew that this was dead time and I could be doing something instead of sitting worrying about not being asleep. That was important. I was despairing at the wasted time. He describes the experience of making this album as, quote, kind of dreamlike. He says, sometimes I'd go back the next day and think, wow, some of it doesn't sound like me. There are things I wouldn't have done during the day, lots of things coming in and out of focus. Which is, I think, pretty accurate to this album. We know that Matt loves synthesizers. We know that synthesizer music is a huge influence on him and a huge passion of his, but there isn't really anything else in his catalog that sounds quite like this. It definitely doesn't sound like what you think of when most people think of a Matt Berry album.
Yeah, you can really tell the influences on this one at different parts with Mike Oldfield and Jean-Michel Jarre. You can really hear all of that influence, and we'll talk about it more, but it definitely comes through in this. And I wonder if that's actually what he was referencing when he said that it doesn't sound like him necessarily. I think maybe when you're sleep deprived and you're doing something sort of almost on autopilot, I wonder if that was just coming through subconsciously in a way, those influences.
Yeah. I think that's probably very much the case. In the same article, he says, kind of talking about how he conceived the album, I tried to make it interesting, but I've left it as blank as I can. I've used basic elements such as water and air. Other than that, it's whatever images you can conjure up from it. I'm not trying to push anything on you. So that totally makes sense, that when he tried to leave this music as blank and as just sort of open to interpretation as he could, of course, his formative influences are going to shine through on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Can you hear it thundering here now?
It sounds so cool, because like we're about to get into kind of this funky stuff.
Nighttime album.
It really fits the theme of this episode because when I'm trying to sleep, I like to listen to thunder and rain. It just really relaxes me. And then simultaneously, Courtney's had a thunderstorm in Austin, and then Tara has one in Quebec, and I'm about to have one in Florida. So we've just gone. So if you hear random thunder, it's one of us. We're all kind of having simultaneous thunderstorms, which is super weird.
Setting the mood.
It is setting the mood. I think it's really cool. Also setting the mood is that I slept like absolute shit last night because I'm experiencing some of this, and I'll get into that in a minute. But anyway.
As am I. Tara, how did you sleep last night?
Weird. I had the sleep paralysis and the weird kitten dream.
Sleep
That's
paralysis.
right. You told us about your weird kitten dream. So we're all sleeping like shit.
Sleep paralysis is the absolute worst feeling ever.
So we get where you're coming from, Matt. We all had shitty sleeps.
Yeah, and he mentions it a bit. He did an interview in 2014 on Stuart McConey's Freak Zone. He mentions in that interview the ambient stuff was far too ambient and anything else was far too kind of hectic. So that time of night, you've watched your fourth film. It's like 4:30, so you're thinking, what the hell am I going to do? So what I did do is just get out of bed and go into the studio, which is next door where I sleep, and I just try to kind of sum up the atmosphere. Before I kind of knew it, like a month had passed, and I had a whole album's worth. And then the thing is to get different sort of pieces to kind of dovetail into one another, and that was the interesting bit for me. So then the interviewer says, musically it reminded me of Heaven and Hell by Vangelis, sometimes sad, sometimes euphoric, where you're going through those type of emotions when you couldn't sleep. He said yes, because everything's kind of amplified. Pretty mundane stuff feels very intense and troublesome, but the big thing is I didn't want to put too much of myself in it. I wanted those sounds to affect people in their own ways, to tell their own stories, as it were. Selfishly, I did it for myself because there wasn't anything, that I could listen to. And then I realized that was ridiculous because I'm not going to be able to get to sleep to something I've made myself, because all that I'm going to do, because all that I'm doing then is just going, I could have done that much better. I could have done that in a different way. I shouldn't have even done that. So that kind of failed as a project. But, if it helps anyone else, then that's good.
I love that quote.
I know.
I love that quote.
But that's what
so
I'm
funny
saying.
Because
that's what I picture of him not being able to just enjoy his own work. Like, he made this essentially for himself, truly. And then, I can't listen to this because I am, hypercritical. I'm gonna pick apart my own work, even though it's, anyways, I just thought that was kind of really funny. I like that.
It is really funny. And the part where he says that the most mundane things get amplified, that's exactly what I feel like. I just wake up in the middle of the night all the time with just, the stupidest things that cross my mind. Some idiotic thing I said, 15 years ago. And that pops back in your head at
Yeah.
3 a.m, and then your brain is on and you can't turn it off. That's my biggest issue. I can't turn off my brain.
It's because we're geniuses. I think that's what it is. All of us geniuses, we can't turn off our stupid brains. We should just be idiots.
But that really is insomnia in a nutshell, right? It's like nothing makes you feel like you've never done anything right in your whole life than being stuck awake at 3 a.m, just reliving everything you've ever said and done.
Exactly.
I don't know how to get out of that loop of the thoughts. Yeah, it's difficult. Yeah.
Well, this album, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Just listen to this.
So the interviewers asked him what did he do finally to get over it, and he said, well, it's kind of like those things, I mean, I know some actors that get in the state because they think they can't keep lines in their head, and all it is you putting that in the front of your mind and the most important thing in your sort of day-to-day life, and it isn't. And insomnia started to become, the most important thing in my head, and then I thought, this is dumb, so you make it smaller and kind of smaller thing until it's gone. And that's what I did, thank God. But, it could come back.
I really like that. That's very smart of him. And it's very true for all kinds of things, really.
It is, but I feel like it's also much easier said than done.
Jumping back to that Guardian article from around the same time, he ends that by kind of on a similar note, saying, I think not dwelling on it might be the key. When you can't think of anything else, it takes over your day and you're lost from that moment. It won't rule my day ever again. I'm going to try to be in the driving seat. It's a nice thought.
I think so.
I hope he's done it. I hope he's not battled with it again.
I don't know.
He has said in subsequent interviews, because the interviews we're quoting now are all from the album release in 2014. There have been interviews since this time where because he's talked about it so much, he's been asked, has your insomnia come back? And he has said that it has, that it's something that tends to kick in when he's in a stressful situation or feeling anxious. He, a few years later, talked about buying a house and how insomnia kicked in around the time he was buying his new house. So I hate to say this was not the end of his insomnia saga, but it's inspired a lot of good music.
It
So that's
has,
the silver lining.
It definitely has. So about the music, in the same Freak Zone interview, the interviewer asked him, did you want that feeling sometimes troubled and disturbed and sometimes perhaps serene? And he said, yeah, because that's what I would have been, that's how I would have felt. So I was always trying to sonically translate what kind of mood I was in. That's the only way to kind of do it. I wasn't going to write nice things because I didn't feel like that. I was desperate. And he asked, did you try other types of music? And he said, yeah, well, I had some terrible advice. I was listening to Best of Chill Out and those things, and they just drove me insane. And then it was, whale song and this guy that was speaking over sort of whale song, and it was nonsense. If you don't care about any kind of music, then I'm sure it could actually work. But if you're sitting there going, why are you using panpipes on this? No one ever uses panpipes. It's, yeah. And the interviewer asked, do you think the panpipe might be the worst musical instrument ever? And he said, well, it's one of those things, isn't it? Every keyboard comes out, the new ones, and they still have that as one of the actual presets. And I think to myself, why still put it on there? And it's not going to be used by anyone unless they're mad.
And by the way, if you listen to, this was a radio interview, so if you listen to the actual audio of this interview, which we're going to be linking in the credits to this podcast, he is affronted by panpipes. This scars his very soul, the fact that people are putting panpipes as a preset on keyboards. Sorry, Matt, I know this means a lot to you. It's pretty funny.
It is funny, and I don't know how you can be affronted by panpipes.
He really, and for those of you, I'm sure we're not the only ones who are here who have read a lot of interviews with Matt. He is really, really traumatized by these whale songs and panpipes. Yeah. He mentions them over and over and over in every interview where he touches on insomnia. There's a Spotify PM playlist that he made a few years later where he has a whole segment devoted to whale songs and panpipes and how they just made him sleep more poorly because all he could think is who made this and why and how much did it cost. Just hates whales and hates panpipes.
I don't necessarily think that whale songs are that relaxing, but panpipes, I actually have an app that you can combine different sounds, and one of them is rain hitting a tin roof with some distant thunder and crickets, and I think there's some very distant, oh no, I don't use the panpipes, I use wind chimes, similar but different. Sorry, never mind. Maybe the panpipes don't work, but you know what else? I've actually tried to listen to this when I've been having trouble really sleeping, getting to sleep, and it could be because I don't have headphones that are comfortable to sleep in, or probably that's part of it, but also it actually does kind kind of work. I don't know if you guys have tried it or not,
Oh,
but
yeah.
it does, for me, it kind of works until you get into the parts, like the more scary parts in the middle, because that wakes me up every single time. There's one part, we'll talk about it in a little while, where it's kind of just a yell, and that gets me every single time it wakes me up.
Okay, yeah, I'm glad I'm not the only one. I'm like, I couldn't sleep through that.
So I guess, Matt, if you do want to come and try to perform this live in my bedroom, maybe just skip that part, because
Yeah, please.
that part wakes me up.
Don't like it.
All right.
Shall we dive into the music?
Let's dive into it.
Let's do it.
So we're going to try to break this up into bite-sized chunks because I don't know any other way that we could possibly do this. I think we all kind of came to the same conclusion that the sounds sort of change roughly every 5 minutes. It goes into different moods and stuff. Not perfectly does it work out that way, but it does work out that way a little bit. For our purposes, we'll say it does.
We're not going to be giving star ratings to each section. We talked about that, but it's just because the album flows as a coherent whole, there's just going to be too difficult. So we're really just going to try to talk about the album as it flows and as the mood changes and just kind of touch on how it unfolds.
Some humming, and like I said, Cecilia Phage does the vocals on this, where there's not really vocals, but the humming and the choir sounds, to me it sounds kind of like mermaid singing, like that distant siren call. I think it's very comforting, and the first few minutes of it, especially the very beginning, you can really hear that Mike Oldfield influence from Tubular Bells. He does play some percussion machines or drum machines in this, and to me it sounds like bongos, which I think is an interesting choice.
So I have a different take on it. I always picture dark, foggy church, and there is a thunderstorm raging outside, which is appropriate because we are currently in thunderstorm. And there is like a man in a dark hooded cape, and he's furiously playing on the organ as the fog swirls around him and the candlelight flickers. And at the same time, there's this sexy lady ghost who is also in the church, and she's oohing and awing, and it's pretty, but it's a little bit spooky, and I'm there just kind of seeking refuge from the thunderstorm, and I'm a bit freaked out by the whole scene. But, the music, it starts to get slightly jauntier, and then I start to, bob my head and sway, and I get into it more, and swear to God, that's like every time. That's what I picture.
That's very elaborate, Tara.
It is very elaborate. I mean, the song is the whole album is extremely atmospheric, but that's definitely, I can see where you're coming from that. It's the chanting vocals for me. Yeah, I think I can definitely see that.
It puts me in a church, and like the organ music in the beginning, like, again, I don't know if it's like a real organ or a synth or whatever, but it just puts me back to, I was raised Catholic, Roman Catholic, so we listened to a lot of dun 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 dun, like, I mean, I guess it wasn't that dark. It was probably a little bit, more happy, but yeah, it puts me back to church.
Yeah, I could see that. He plays like a billion different synths on this too. I'll do like that full list of all the instruments he played, like I did for Kill the Wolf, and I'll post it. It's an impressive amount of synths that he plays with on this. I don't know. I don't know how you tell the difference between them, but I know he knows, and that's probably extremely offensive.
I was gonna say, don't let him hear this.
Oh my god.
We all listen to his 2 S's for synthesizer shows, so we should really know the difference between all of these.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All I
know I was
learned
taking
from that
notes.
second S's for synthesizers, Matt said fuck CDs, which
Yeah.
I don't know why he's so against CDs, but I mean, I guess that's
Fuck
okay.
him.
He's a vinyl
Yeah, fuck
junkie.
him.
He is. I don't even own
Yeah.
a CD player. I have a billion CDs from like when I was a kid and stuff, and the only CD player that I have is in my car, and I think that I've had the same Jimmy Buffett best of CD in my car for like since I've had my car for like 10 years.
I saw an article the other day about how there is a CD renaissance coming. Like, first there was the vinyl revival, then cassettes, and Matt's issued several of his albums on cassettes, and now CDs are coming back. So
I
sorry,
can
Matt, you're behind the times.
I can understand CDs coming back, but why? I don't understand cassettes coming back. Cassettes were a pain in the ass when they were a thing. Why? I mean, I just kind of thought it was a novelty, because it's definitely not for sound quality, I don't
It's
think,
a display
right?
piece, I'm assuming.
I don't know.
It's
I think
basically
I
something you put on your shelf.
I do still have some cassettes from when I was a kid, but I definitely do not own a cassette player. Like, for
That's
sure.
the thing, though.
Not
in
even
this age
anywhere.
of, like, you know, everything being online and music being so easy to access any way you want, anything that's like a physical copy of something is kind of a little bit of a niche of something, you know? It's like, oh, like
Right.
I'm a vinyl collector. I'm a cassette collector. Like, you don't have to be doing what we're doing.
I mean, I'll confess, I have this album on vinyl. We were talking at the beginning about how we both own the white vinyl copies, Jesse and I do. But I rarely listen to it, because if I'm listening to this album, I typically am either trying to sleep or I'm doing a task that requires some concentration, because this album is great for that.
Yes.
And I don't want to have to get up and flip it over.
Yeah, I do. I love listening to the actual record, but you're right. When you're listening to it for concentration, because I listen to this all the time while I'm working, because it really is fantastic for concentration. You don't necessarily want to get up and flip the record over.
It's too much work.
Yeah. Plus, this one is worth so much money now. I don't want. I don't want to mess
That
it
too.
up. I mean, if we're being realistic, that's the real reason. I don't want to risk scratching it or anything.
Must preserve.
Yeah. I think this is also in the first 5 minutes where what I consider to be kind of space sounds comes in. To me, that's like the quintessential synth sound, is that like space. I always think of when you go to Disney World and you go on Space Mountain, and when you're waiting in line, the soundtrack is just all pew, pew, like, and then I just always consider that, which I guess is probably synthesizers, and I just always consider that to be space sounds now. That's what it sounds like to me.
That sound is seared in my brain.
Yes, right? It totally is. So
I really think this first section, it's one of my favorite parts of this whole album, and to me it just captures that feeling of twilight sleep really perfectly. Like, it doesn't sound like insomnia to me. It sounds like that feeling where you're sort of halfway between being asleep and being awake and having a hard time, like you're sort of having these lucid dreams, but then you keep coming in and out of them. It sounds like that. It just nails it.
It does. I totally agree. And you know what? I was listening to as kind of takes on something different. This isn't one of those albums that I've ever just sat down and concentrated on with headphones. And I did for this because I wanted to take notes on what I was hearing. And when I was listening to it, I thought, you know, I can totally see where he was going with this, because to me it sounds like sleep cycles. Like what you just mentioned, that's the early sleep stage where your brain is still kind of really firing, but then it starts to relax a little bit. But it really does seem like sleep cycles to me, even dreaming, having pleasant dreams, and then having some nightmares. It really is interesting to think of it like that.
I think the first, you know, again, first 5 minutes that we're talking about, I think that's the most relaxing for me, and the section that I would most be able to actually straight up fall asleep to.
Yeah.
I find in the later sections there's some stuff that kind of puts me a little bit on edge but that this section doesn't.
And I think I read somewhere too that he kind of fashioned it as he wanted it something that your brain to focus on the sounds, but not to be too distracting that you couldn't fall asleep. And I kind of do that. I have a bad habit of falling asleep with the TV on every night, because I do need that little bit of sound that I can just kind of barely hear it and barely hear what they're saying. But it has to be very specific. It has to be something that I've ever either seen a billion times, like the Golden Girls, or something without a lot of laugh track, something without a lot of sound effects, or something with just talking. Like the Discovery Channel is fantastic for falling asleep. My favorite is River Monsters, because Jeremy Wade's voice is so relaxing. That's my favorite thing to fall asleep to. I kind of feel like he was going for the same sort of thing with this. It just gives you something to kind of focus on, and then you just kind of go into unconsciousness.
Exactly. Something to kind of latch on to, so
Yeah.
you're not in your own head.
Right, exactly. Then we get into like around the 5-minute mark is the first time he comes in with some chimes, and then this is the first time you hear whispers. Were you able to make anything out on the whispers?
I was not, and I've tried many, many times.
So this is what I got from the whispers. It's very hard when you're listening to, because with headphones on, he's whispering in both ears and he's saying different things. So what I got is, if I go into town, if I go into the orchard, I don't know. And then I heard the word expectations, I heard the word reputations, and that was all I could make out in that first section of whispering. But there's more whispering later that I could get more stuff out of. It just sounds, this part I think sounds really dreamy and kind of soundscape like. There's like some bubbling sounds, some chimes.
This part around the 6-minute 52, I thought there was some really cool elements that were kicking in that just completely make me feel like I'm underwater. And you know, the bubbles are bloop 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 all around you. I'm Ariel, and my mermaid minstrels are playing a jam deep down under the sea. That's where that takes me to.
Hey, well, I got mermaid singing from the very beginning, so I totally get what you're going for there.
I mean, he talked about using elements such as water and air. We're not totally off track.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
We're getting it, Matt.
Yeah, I also noticed that the bass gets so deep that it almost rumbles. Like, you know that sound when you blow a speaker? It gets that, like, rumbly sound? I definitely hear that, too. And then there's more whispers.
And, you know, it's probably worth noting that he doesn't use only synths on this album.
No.
It's very, very, very synthy, but he does use the electric piano. He also uses the organ, some found percussion, and you can hear the piano pretty prominently in this section, too, kind of floating above the synths.
So there's another section of whispers around 9 minutes and 30 seconds. And I can make this part out a little bit more. He said, I think, because it is very hard to make out, more reputations, and then the next thing you know, everyone's saying it. And then he says, watch your step. And then he says, it's that kind of shit.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, I've never heard that last part.
Yeah.
But he really is getting at, like, the things that go through your head at 3 a.m. when you can't sleep and you're criticizing everything you've ever done. Like,
Absolutely.
this is how you talk to yourself.
Absolutely. I really wish you could make it out more. And then a door opens. The sound of a door opens and you can hear him say, shh, shh, who's that? Be quiet. I think that's one of the parts where it wakes me up a little bit.
Right. The next couple of minutes after this part, to me at least, feel like fragments of dreams. there's kind of a lot of ambient noise. There's the music, of course, but you can also hear kind of children's voices, children's laughter at 12 minutes, more laughter, sort of almost diabolical sounding laughter to me around 14 minutes. And so there's kind of this almost sound collage for a couple of minutes, and then it returns back around 15 minutes to that initial theme that you heard at the very beginning. It's kind of a dramatic build-up, going back to that theme that winds in and out of the music.
I thought it was really interesting too, because around 10 minutes you get that more space sounds, and then it kind of feels a little bit more ominous, and then it goes to the kids playing, and then there's some like more light piano, so it feels a little bit lighter, and then the woman laughing, but then it becomes like hysterical laughing. There's also some more of that percussion from the drum machines, but it's kind of upbeat percussion too. So many layers to it.
And then at 17 minutes, after that dramatic build up to the theme, you hear him saying, "Okay, okay," with kind of a wailing voice in the background. I would really love to know the story behind, or just the rationale behind the fragments that he did choose to make intelligible.
Yeah.
Because, there was a lot of thought. Like, obviously, a lot of the whispering is pretty indecipherable, and he doesn't do anything by accident. I'm sure he put a lot of thought and a lot of intention into what you can actually hear and why.
Right.
And I would love to know that rationale, because it's pretty cryptic.
I would too, and that part doesn't even sound like him to me. At the around the 15-minute mark, I just thought it gets really really loud, more chaotic, and then it almost goes into a crescendo like A Day in the Life. That's what I always think of when I hear that part. And then it gets more ominous, and then I feel like there's somebody crying for help, but I can't tell for sure because it's distant, like nightmarish kind of crying. It doesn't sound necessarily exactly like somebody crying for help. It sounds like a nightmare. The whole thing goes from like light and airy to nightmare. So if dreams are only a couple of seconds long, even though you feel like they're an hour long, they only last a few seconds. So I kind of feel like maybe that's part of this too, where each little ominous tone to a happy sound, they're only like fractions of a minute long.
Shit is starting to get a bit spooky. I don't see how this would put you to sleep. There's like a spooky demon as well as like aliens that are shooting lasers. I find it almost like a bit uncomfortable. So I was like listening to this today specifically on repeat, and I had it on like full blast on my computer at work, and I had to turn it down. I was like, this is like a bit much, and I just find it like all of a bad vibe. Like it's not good. And again, we've all experienced insomnia, so like I get it, but yeah.
Around the 18-minute mark, we get into October Sun, because this was written before Kill the Wolf. So clearly he wrote this and then recycled it, as he does for Kill the Wolf.
And then recycled October Sun many, many times for other projects.
This one is just the very more synthy version of it, obviously, because that's mostly what he uses on this. But you have a lot of the same sound effects too, like the horse neighs, and then you've got the hooves chopping. some background vocals, but you cannot make out what they say. But you do hear the verse, like a bad dream that never goes away. Were you able to make out what he was saying in that other part?
I couldn't.
I can't either. It's too garbled.
Yeah, it's just like the alien version of October Sun. It's a little bit spooky, I find.
It feels kind of more hyperactive, like it's sung through a vocoder. Why can I never say that? Vocoder. I mangle that every episode. I initially wrote that it's sped up, and then I realized, no, it's not. It's the same tempo. It just feels sped up.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't understand why you can't say vocoder like it's not part of your everyday vocabulary. Don't you say that on a regular basis? Like in
It comes up a lot in my job as a social worker.
I would totally think it would. It does sound sped up, but it's not. I think it's just the synthiness of it.
The synthiness and also the complex rhythms. There's what I'm assuming is a drum machine going in the background, and it has a much more kind of complex rhythm than what we hear in Kill the Wolf. I don't know. I don't know enough about music theory to speak to it, but there's a lot going on there.
It is. It sounds messier. Sounds more
Messier,
hectic
yeah.
and chaotic.
Yeah, hectic. I like the hectic. That's
And then after that, it just goes into more children. It kind of almost sounds like somebody's running, and
that's the end of side A. We should mention.
Yeah.
October Sun ends side A, and then we go to side B.
Is it officially side A and side B on the record, or is it part 1 and part 2?
You're right. Well, it's kind of both.
I know.
Side A is part 1.
Actually, it's really hard to tell on the actual record because the second side doesn't have any label. It's just the picture of the eyeball.
Doesn't it say something like that side and this side?
On the other side, on side A, it says this side, Music for Insomniacs Part 1, and then on the other and then it says that side, Music for Insomniacs Part 2. So there you go. And then that side, Part 2, is just a picture of the eyeball. It's just cool. I think the whole record is really cool. I'm a sucker for colored vinyl.
I don't know if I've seen the inside of it. I've only really seen the outside because again, I don't own it.
Would you like to see it? The visual?
It's a cool looking album because it looks like a giant eyeball.
Yeah, here.
The eyeball side does, anyway.
This is super helpful for all of our actual listeners, but that's what that side looks like. And
That's crazy. That's cool. I like it.
It is cool. All right.
Good job, Matt.
To part 2.
Like you were just saying, part 2 starts with kind of more ominous sounds. You hear a choir, you hear more Cecilia's kind of siren-esque moaning vocals in the background. I wrote that this part to me sounds like storm clouds gathering. It really sounds...
Yeah, it's bassy. It's very bassy.
Spacey and just, ominous and dark.
There's a part on side 2, or part 2, that sounds like... It's a very specific sound. I've heard this sound. I grew up boating and all this, and this sounds like when you're on a boat, and you're docked, and the ropes that are holding the boat to the dock become strained. There's a very specific sound that it makes of ropes being strained, and that is the exact sound at 1:02. That's exactly what it sounds like to me. It sounds like, it happens when it gets a little rough and, the boat is being pulled away from the dock and you hear
it's getting taut.
You hear the ropes getting taut. Exactly. That's what it sounds like to me. But it's just this, I don't know if that's what he was going for, but that's a very specific sound that I recognize.
It'd be funny if it wasn't what he was going for, and you just, again, you catch things from it and it reminds you of something from your own life and he might not have intended it.
I don't know how you would even recreate that sound, which is strange.
Synths, man, they're crazy.
I don't know if that's a synth sound or...
I have no idea.
I don't know. I mean, I guess it would have to be.
Sound effect?
Yeah, some sort of a sound effect.
He does mention using found percussion, and the back of the album doesn't elaborate on what that found percussion is, just that he uses it.
I would love to know. That would be really cool to find out, because he doesn't usually do percussion on his albums of any
He does
type.
on TV themes. Too.
Does he?
He plays drums on one track, he plays bongos on a few tracks, and he plays found percussion on, I think, a few others. So he dabbles in it.
Really?
We'll get there down the line.
I wonder if the bongos that I thought I heard on the first part in the beginning were actually bongos, and he just wasn't specific about the percussion, or if it really
could
was
be.
just
We've seen photos of his studio, and he does have bongos in there.
Yeah.
So that sort of storm clouds gathering vibe continues for about 5.5 minutes. And then at around 5.5 minutes in, you hear a recurrence of that Music for Insomniacs theme that you heard at the beginning, and you heard kind of weaving its way through part A. And it turns into like a synthy, almost chant. I wrote, that's again indecipherable. He really does, it's kind of debatable how effective this album actually is to fall asleep to, but you can't really knock how well he captures the essence of dreams and how everything just feels kind of slightly distant, slightly out of reach.
Absolutely. There's a part before that too that it gets really quiet, and I think that's the part you might have been talking about where it's only the melody, probably the Music for Insomniacs melody, and then you hear what sounds like meowing, like a cat meowing, like a meow, meow, but it's sort of high-pitched. And then you hear a baby crying and what sounds like maybe a horse and buggy on like possibly a cobblestone or a gravel street.
He does have a horse and buggy license.
Maybe he was driving that horse and buggy.
Yeah.
That's his found percussion.
Because he's legal to do so. Yeah, and then it's like the more of a chaotic piano and the vocoder again, and he's definitely saying something, but you can't make out what it is. There's more chanting, and then it builds back up to more distant laughing and the piano, more of like the piano high notes, which makes it sound a little creepy.
Yeah, so like this whole album, again, I think it's really good, but I don't ever see myself listening to it to actually fall asleep. It's absolutely genius in how he breaks down, again, to me, the sleep cycles, and I think that's just kind of what's more apparent in the whole thing, and maybe I'm just really wrong in that. I don't see myself being able to ever doze off to this, but it's just extremely well done, and you can tell that, he's really battled with insomnia, and I think it's something we all kind of probably have at one point or another.
You know what that just made me think of is, Courtney, remember when you said that, I think you said your mom listened to something, Gather Up, and she thought it sounded a little like Les Mis and the musical theater.
Yeah.
I was totally just thinking that this would be kind of like if you did some sort of performance art of somebody on stage sleeping, and this would be like the perfect overall soundtrack to that entire performance. I could even picture like on stage, imagery in the back. That part in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory when they go through the river on the boat, and it's all those scary pictures and stuff.
How could I forget?
Oh God, I still can't as an adult. I cannot watch that part. It scares the shit out of me. So, but that's totally what I'm thinking of, that you could totally picture somebody on stage sleeping, the screen behind them with these crazy images, and then just the soundtrack playing. It would just be like amazing performance art of somebody sleeping, because you capture all of the sleep cycles and the dreams and the nightmares and everything that happens. I think it's really I kind of want to see that happen now, even though it would scare me.
We wouldn't want to watch it, but we want it to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody make it
Just
happen.
tell me about it afterwards.
Yeah.
Describe it to me.
Exactly.
This is the part where it wakes me up for good, and I cannot fall back to sleep. Around the 8-minute and 35 mark, there's heavy piano, and then a loud splash, and then gurgling and then it sounds like somebody drowning, and underwater they're yelling. That's the loudest part, I think, on the whole album. And that, if I had any chance of sleeping before, I'm done at that point.
Those drowning
Yeah, it's gonna
noises
wake you
live
up.
rent-free in my head.
It's-
Those are
I'm-
so disturbing.
It really is. I don't know. It sounds very realistic. I guess we'll go with that.
Yeah.
It sounds very realistic.
Too realistic.
Because that's exactly what it sounds like when somebody would yell. If you've ever stuck your head underwater in a pool or something and you've heard somebody yell, that's exactly what it sounds like.
Yeah.
I'm
it does.
wondering how he made that, or how he kind
I
of
know, right?
came up with
Mhm.
that effect. And especially given this was before he bought his house out in the country. This is when he had a flat in London. So presumably he had upstairs neighbors, maybe downstairs neighbors. And he was recording this in his home studio in the middle of the night while trying not to wake the neighbors. Matt Berry might be kind of a shitty neighbor.
I don't know. I've never heard anybody say a bad word about him, so I cannot imagine that being the case. But I guess if you do live next door to, upstairs or downstairs from somebody who has a home studio, it could be a possibility that he's a shitty neighbor.
It's just all of a sudden a baby crying and somebody drowning and screaming.
Well, and obviously the baby crying, the horse neighing, clip-clopping sounds. Is it possible he just used sound bites that he found?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something
Yeah.
that would come pre-programmed onto a synthesizer, or that you could program onto a synthesizer.
Man drowning.
Yeah.
I mean,
not?
baby crying, I think it would.
Yeah.
Man
Just one of the
drowning,
many
I'm not so
ones.
sure.
Man drowning.
I may be making this up, but I don't think I am. I feel like I read somewhere that he would record things on his phone when he was out and about. Sounds.
Heard that. Yeah, I've read that somewhere.
Did he?
I
I
swear,
swear I've read that somewhere.
I swear I have. I don't think I'm confusing him with somebody else, because I don't know.
No, I mean, we'll find out once people listen
Yeah,
to this and
somebody
they're
will tell
like,
us.
I've listened to every interview and that's not on there.
I'll have to do some digging on that.
I agree with you, so
Yeah, I don't remember that,
either
but
we're
that's cool.
both crazy. or
Still
it's true.
doesn't understand the man drowning, because that would not be something you could capture on your phone. So
Hopefully
that
not.
remains a mystery. The other
Yeah.
stuff,
I'm just
the
having an
playground.
image of some poor guy drowning in the Thames and Matt just standing there
Wait,
above
wait.
him with his iPhone.
Let me get my phone.
Trying to get closer
Wait.
to the phone, like
Start that over again.
Can you start back from the splash? Because I need to get that. It's fundamental. But I could definitely
Oh.
see him getting the stuff like the kids playing at a park, even a baby crying, or the woman laughing hysterically. I could see that being stuff
Yeah.
that he just randomly recorded. I don't know. I really need to look for that now, because that will drive me crazy if I can't find
Yeah,
I
it.
wish
I'd
he
like
would
to see
just
that.
like come and chat with us because we have pretty good questions. He probably won't think they're good, but we think they're really good. Like, how did you do the guy drowning? Were you watching a guy drowning? Like,
Was this happening in real time?
Did you mean to wear those Converse on the back cover, or was that an accident?
yeah, that's the big question from this album.
That was an oversight by Ben Meadows. He did not ask Matt to change his shoes first. And they're like, we'll go with it. It looks good.
They're like, oh, it's already in production. We might
Yeah.
as well just go with it. Yeah.
Anyways, where were we? Oh yeah.
We were
Man
at
drowning.
the terrifying drowning noises.
Right. That's the part
Yeah.
where I'm done sleeping for the night if I listen to this.
That's the part where if I'm
Yeah, that's
already
it, right?
anxious, I'm just inching toward full-on panic attack.
Oh God, it really
Yeah.
is. But
Does
after
not put me to
that,
sleep.
yeah, the music builds in intensity after the drowning, after the underwater yelling. And to me, it sounds like the space sounds mixed with underwater sounds, and then it gets real quiet again. And then it goes into what sounds like a male choir or monks chanting. That's what it sounds like to me. It sounds like men in a chorus, kind of.
Like Gregorian monks or something?
Yeah, like they're just doing like a chanting, but they're not really saying anything, sort of, although I'm sure the monks are actually saying something. And then it feels a little bit lighter after that. And then there's another sound, if the splash and the man drowning didn't get you, that sounds like an explosion at around 14 minutes and 35 seconds.
And then gurgling noises, muttering.
Yeah.
Baby crying.
More whispers, another cat possibly, another clopping horse. It sounds like all of the... I always forget what you sound... Oh, sound collage. It sounds like a sound collage of all of the sound effects that he'd used previously all mixed together.
It's very much a sound collage at that point.
Yeah. And
at around 15 minutes, 15 seconds, you hear a really discordant song in the background. It almost sounds to me like maybe a nursery rhyme or a lullaby kind of gone wrong.
I missed that. I'll have to go back and listen to that part.
Yeah, I think that might be Cecilia. It's hard to really tell. It almost sounds like it could be sampled from an old record or something.
There's so much stuff happening in that one particular section.
It's a lot.
It is. This whole half of the album is just... It starts off pretty benign, and then it just gets darker and darker and darker.
Yeah.
And then it always returns to that opening theme. Around 16 minutes, it kind of subsides in intensity again. And it goes back to that initial Tubular Bells influence opening theme.
Yeah, it comes kind of full circle. It gets a little quieter again around like 1830. And then around the 19-minute mark, it just goes right into deep bass and what sounds like EDM to me with like a catchy melody. Sounds like EDM.
Because that's what I have. I have like at 19 minutes. Is this one of his songs? I said it's familiar, but I can't place it.
It's like do 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 do.
I like it.
It sounds a little bit like the preset in like a Casio keyboard.
Yes, that's exactly what it sounds like. I almost wrote that exact thing. It sounds like an old school Casio keyboard pre-mix, like a built-in sound.
I used to play those a lot, so that makes sense that I was familiar
I think everybody
with it.
had one of those when they were a kid, but that totally... Oh, you know what? He still has that one, that little white one. Remember he showed it in the Word in Your Ear interview?
Right, the one he was gifted for Christmas when I think he was like 8 or 9 years old, something like that.
I think he said it was like 1981 or something. I wonder if that made a play into any of this. I wonder if that was the pre-recorded sound on that little guy.
They asked him in that interview, because I have that interview just committed to memory, if he had used it in something, and watch someone prove me wrong now, but I believe he said he hasn't, but that he totally would.
Ah, drat. There goes that idea.
But he also has a horrible memory, so it's also entirely possible that he did and just forgot.
He very well may not remember that.
Especially if he was
if
doing it in the middle of the night.
I don't know if he has a bad memory or a very selective memory. I think it might be a combination of the two.
A lot of the men I know have very selective memories, and I would say that they are bad memories.
It's a very male quality.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, you have such a selective memory, but like, really, I'm saying like, how does your brain work? Like, how did you forget that kind of thing? So, who knows?
So then the song wraps up after the EDM section / Casio keyboard section. It ends with some heavy percussion sounds, and then it's got like this light bloop bloop kind of sound. It's the only way I can describe it. And the last 3 seconds, I think, it just sounds like crunching or like somebody rubbing on a microphone or something like that.
Didn't catch that part.
Maybe it was my headphones. Maybe I should have listened to that
this
again.
is interesting.
That's what it sounded like to me. I don't know.
You're like, this is a great way to end it.
falling asleep by the end of listening to Music for Insomniacs IV.
That's good, though. Did it
Music for
you?
Insomniacs Part 4 really does work as something that you could fall asleep to.
I agree.
Yes.
I completely agree.
Much more than that. than
Yeah, I
actual
don't know if
music
I was
for
just
Insomniacs.
sleepy from not sleeping well the night before, going to bed late and waking up early, but by the time I was done listening to the whole thing, I was like, okay, I need a nap now. So maybe it's not necessarily something I can sleep to, but maybe listen to before I go to bed as just a relaxation soundtrack.
Yeah.
By the way, we should stop here and acknowledge that there is no Music for Insomniacs Part 3, at least not that we've ever heard. It goes straight from Part 2 to Part 4, which, this is total speculation, but for those snuffbox aficionados among you, you'll remember that the Matt Berry Project's big song was Suicide Part 4,
That is
The Empty
true.
Room.
Okay.
And so, is this a snuffbox reference?
Well-
Maybe. I like to think so.
I thought that it might be a Jean-Michel Jarre thing, actually, also.
Well,
Because
that's no fun, Jesse.
Well, I don't know.
Don't
for
bring him into this.
I don't think there's an Oxygen Part 3. Is there?
That makes a lot more
knows?
sense. God damn it.
I don't know. I'm looking right now.
Is
No,
there-
Although
there
the
is, there
Snuffbox
is.
song
There-
might be a reference to Jean-Michel
Yeah.
Jarre, that's probably a lot more likely.
There is, though. Oxygen is Part 1 through Part 6. There is a Part 3. Damn it. And Equinox 2, there is a Part 3. So we'll go back to the Snuffbox
Imagine,
theory.
though.
I like the
That could've
Snuffbox
been really
theory.
good.
Suicide Part 4 / Music for Insomniacs Part 4.
Is Lost Contact then just kind of Part 3?
No, Lost Contact's just Lost Contact.
So
All right.
good.
So, Music for Insomniacs Part 4, which is the single, that was a record store day? Is that what it was? Just a record store day release?
It was, yeah, in
So,
2014.
I have one that's signed, and I posted a picture of it earlier. I don't know. I guess somebody probably got it signed at maybe a gig or something. Or maybe it was personally signed. I don't know. I got it on Discogs. I've not seen another one signed, but I'm sure they're out there. And it's just like 3 minutes and change. It's very short, the first side. And to me, it just sounds completely atmospheric. There's some choir sounds. When I listen to it, it sounds like a movie score, almost. Like a very short, something that could have
Yeah.
been repeated as a movie score. I like it a lot.
I think it's nice.
I'm kind of with Tara. It's nice. It's pretty. It feels shimmering. It feels kind of what the sun bouncing off water looks like.
Ooh, that's
There's
very
sort of these-
descriptive.
Sometimes that English major comes in handy. It feels like undulating waves of sound. But if I'm going to be totally honest, I struggled to find a whole lot more to say about this. It's very atmospheric and it's very ambient. And I don't know that there's a whole lot more there. Maybe I'm just exposing myself as someone who doesn't fully appreciate the synth.
No, I think you're right. It kind of just is. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing that
Yeah.
particularly stands out about it. I think that's why I thought of it as a kind of a movie score, where it's something that's happening behind the action. Music for Insomniacs 4 confuses me, because you've got this, and then the flip side to it, you've got Lost Contact, which is completely different than anything on Music for Insomniacs. It's like
Yeah.
a regular song.
Doesn't
It's
fit in.
got lyrics. The music has the same theme when it starts off as what sounds like some bongos and then some clapping. It's got a similar melody, I guess, as some of Music for Insomniacs, but then there's lyrics, and the lyrics seem quite weighty. It sounds like something he was definitely writing at a specific time in his life, that something was happening, but I have no idea what that is. I can't make any sense of what the lyrics might mean.
just another year. I don't mind the quiet, I don't mind the space, but I'm coming back. Got everything I need, no reason to believe I'm not coming back.
Thought it's about kind of taking a vacation, maybe grappling with fame and just needing to get away from all of it. But, he says, no reason to believe I'm not coming back. Just kind of needing a break and needing an escape, but not needing to fully check out.
Yeah.
Or it could be about drugs. It could also be about drugs.
It could be about drugs.
That works too.
It does. I didn't even think about that. It does work also. It could. It's just repetitive. It just says the same thing over. Those are the only lyrics. There's no reason to believe I'm not coming back. Doesn't really say much else other than that. There's another line before it, but I don't think I can always understand what he's saying.
Got everything I need, no reason.
Oh, right.
I'm moving at full speed. Got everything I need, I'm moving at some speed, but I'm coming back.
Yeah. I think it just confuses me. And this is one of those songs that I really, really, really like. And it's strange to me that it's just stuck on the back of this very limited release single.
But where else does it fit? I mean, this album, even though it was written before Kill the Wolf, it came out sandwiched between Kill the Wolf and The Small Hours. It was recorded after Witch Hazel. Definitely would not fit on any of those releases. Like we talked about at the very beginning, this doesn't really sound like anything else he's done, and Lost Contact doesn't really sound like the rest of this album, but it definitely doesn't sound like anything else he's done. I think this was just a one-off.
I kind of think that it would have been pretty... I do think it would have been fit in pretty well on The Small Hours or Night Terrors, but he hadn't written those yet.
Yeah.
It's just interesting that he didn't come back to it, because sometimes he would put stuff on a single and then rework it for a later album too, but this one is just kind of out there. It's on Spotify.
And you know what?
You can listen to it whenever you want, but as far as...
YouTube.
And YouTube, right. But as far as like releases goes, it's just, that's the only spot that it is. I don't think it's on Gather Up.
It's not. Music for Insomniac Part 4 is.
Yeah.
But Lost Contact isn't.
Well, because I had never heard Lost Contact before. You had mentioned it in what we, what we were going to look at for tonight, and I was like, Lost Contact? And I looked it up, and I was like, this song is pretty fucking bomb. How do I not know it already?
Well, and I think, too, because a lot of people don't like the instrumental, the synthy, full, musical, long form. I know Tara gets really impatient around the 6-minute mark.
6-minute mark, yeah.
So I think probably people that's not their type of music probably skip Music for Insomniacs altogether, not realizing that there's this little gem tacked on to the end of the single, which is sad.
It is a little gem. It's really good.
I put this in all of my playlists. I really like it.
I do too.
I'm gonna now because it's really good.
Yeah, I don't understand it, but I do like it quite a bit. You don't have to understand it.
It's just a little ditty. I really like it. I like the kind of simplistic lyrics of it and the repetition. Yeah, I usually I don't really like that stuff, but it really works for this one.
It really is a little gem at the end. So we didn't go through and give any stars. Do you want to do that now? What do we think about Music for Insomniacs Part 1?
God, it's hard to differentiate Part 1 and Part 2.
I always think of Part 1 being a little bit lighter.
Yeah,
Part 2 being much darker.
I do prefer Part 1, definitely. I 4.5 out of 5. I think it's
excellent. Not perfection, but it's excellent.
I think as far as listening to it for concentration and work music, I give it a 5. I give it a 5 for sure. I listen to it. I have a soundtrack with ambient music. I have a lot of like Brian Eno on there, like his atmospheric stuff, and this one just fits right in.
I will definitely concur with that. I'm a social worker, so there's a lot of paperwork as part of my job, and I've been taking some classes over the past year, so I have to do a lot of studying, and this is the best paperwork music and the best study music I've ever found, hands down. It just gets you in that kind of trance-like state, in the best possible way, where you're just in the zone.
Both of us have attention deficit issues. And I don't know what he may have tapped into on this album. I know he researched sleep cycles and BPM and stuff like that, but whatever it is really does the trick as far as getting you into a concentration mode.
Really, really does. That's an interesting point, and that makes me wonder if this is something that he knows intimately as well, because it really just calms your mind. I'm going to give this a 4.5 as well. It might lose a half star for me because of that part in the middle where it just sort of takes you out. I get what the sound collage part is doing, but it does break the lull of the music a little bit. But yeah, this really just works.
So part 2, I would say just for that reason, because it's terrible for me to sleep to, because that wakes me up, but still good for concentration. But the gurgling hand sound kind of breaks it a little bit. I think like 4.75 on part 2.
4.75.
Yeah, I know. I'm usually like a whole numbers or a half number person.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't usually do
It kind
that.
of hurts my feelings to say 4.75, but I think it's perfect other than the loud splash and then the drowning and yelling.
It kind of loses the plot for me a little bit at that point, where it really just disrupts the music. Again, I get what he's doing. I appreciate the intent. I appreciate the dreamlike feel, but as a piece of music to actually listen to, that part is just unpleasant.
It's
so
jarring.
It's going to lose. It's jarring.
It's very jarring.
No.
Good word. I like that one.
Jean-Michel jarring.
Jean-Michel Jarre.
Let's just say that from now on. Instead of saying it the proper way, just say Jean-Michel Jarre.
I don't remember hearing that on Oxygen.
So yeah, maybe it loses a star for me there. I'm going to give part 2 4 stars.
All right, fair enough.
I'm going to give it 3.5. I don't know. I really, really, really like the first part. I really like part 1. I don't listen to the second part as much. Really, truly. I don't obviously I don't have it on vinyl, so I don't listen to it there, but no, I give it a 3.5.
All right, then moving on to, I guess as a whole, I would give Music for Insomniacs 5 stars. Because I think it's a really, as a whole, I don't know if it does the job it was set out and meant to do. Maybe it works for other people, but just as a piece of music, I think it's a really big accomplishment, especially considering the fact that he wrote that before Kill the Wolf. Like, this is right after he did Witch Hazel, you know? This just sounds so much more polished than Witch Hazel did, leading into Kill the Wolf. You know, and Kill the Wolf is polished too, but I think it sounds every bit as polished as Kill the Wolf.
His take on the sleep cycles is phenomenal. It's just, it really, like, evokes, like, you know, real emotion in you. Again, whether or not that'll actually put you to sleep, not for me, but it definitely evokes that, and he's so creative. Like, it's amazing how somebody can do that, because I don't know how you can be that creative. I don't know.
Like, how can you just, you know, that's a great thing. Yeah, I can't sleep. It's 3:30 in the morning. I'm just going to go in my studio next door and do something with this time.
Yeah.
Whereas most other people who don't have that sort of creative outlet are just, like, watching TV or reading a book, or what else can you do? I know you're not
staring
supposed
at the
to
ceiling and agonizing over the things you said 20 years ago.
Staring at the ceiling and saying,
junior
oh my
high.
God, I only have 3 more hours to sleep. How the hell am I going to
that's the
function tomorrow?
worst.
Which is the worst thing in the world for you to do. Everybody says that's the worst thing to do, but, like, most people don't have that sort of creative outlet that they could just go next to their bedroom and start recording an album. Thank God he did, but, you know.
He's so motivated. Like, God bless him. He is just so good at, like, you know, putting stuff out there, and we definitely thank you for that, Matt. It's much appreciated.
Absolutely.
Very appreciated.
Did you guys do final stars on that one?
No, we didn't.
I'm gonna give it a 4.25. Yeah, that seems pretty much right in between them. So
Five. Oh my gosh.
yeah.
And I am going to completely disregard the laws of mathematics. Tara, were you going to say more? Did I cut you off?
No.
Okay.
No.
I'm going to completely disregard the laws of mathematics because even though I gave one side, I don't even remember what I gave it, like a 4 out of 5 and the other 4.5.
Yeah.
As a cohesive whole, taken as one long work, I'm going to give this a 4.75. It really is, in a lot of ways, more than the sum of its parts.
Yeah.
Flows together
Nice.
beautifully.
You said mathematics, which made me think of maths, and we don't say maths. But you say maths in Canada, don't you?
No.
You don't say maths?
It's a British thing.
It is? I totally thought
No,
that was
it's math.
a Canadian, just math, singular.
Just
Maths and
math,
sport.
please.
I totally thought it was a Canadian thing, too. Okay.
No.
Right.
We have, like, some of the British stuff, like spelling things correctly.
Incorrectly.
But no, we don't do maths, and it's weird to me that they say like
Okay.
it's very British. Like, oh, I'm going to maths. I'm
Math.
going to do some maths.
I
Like,
can't
what
even
is
say that. I cannot say it plural. I can't add it.
Weird.
I gotta have a lisp as it is, and that is real effort for me to say maths.
Maths.
Yeah,
It's like saying
weird.
Like saying Barcelona, like with the Spanish accent. Say lisp on everything. I feel like I would fit in really well there.
Maybe. Are we gonna do Lost Contact? What do we think of
we
Lost
didn't
Contact?
do music.
We
for
didn't do part
Insomniacs
4 either.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, music for Insomniacs 4. It's nice. It doesn't
It's
stand
nice.
out to me really in any way. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, I probably just would give it a 4.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's nice. It's got a 4.
See, it is very nice, and it's pretty, and I expect more from Matt's music than nice and pretty. So I'm going to give it a 2.5.
2.5.
Sorry, Matt, you're underachieving a little here.
That was super unexpected.
Yeah. I really did not see that coming.
I didn't either. Wow. Okay.
Honestly, neither did I, till it was out of my mouth. But here we are.
You're like,
Now
I've
we
said
have to
it.
reckon with it.
I own it. Yeah.
Now it's in the universe.
Yeah.
Courtney gave it a 2.5. Yeah,
And now she's living with that.
now
'cause
when
she
you
said it
Google
and
your name,
Jesse's
that's
not
going to
taking it
come
out.
up. 2.5.
Yeah.
Music for Insomniacs Part 4.
Speaking of things that I'm going to revisit at 3 in the morning.
Have fun with that.
Like, no, it's a solid 4. It's a solid 3.5. Oh,
I regret it.
Can we re-record?
I have regrets.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
there's Lost Contact, the enigma, the gem at the end.
I think it's such a gem. I think it's 4.5. I think it's really great. And again, I only ever heard it today, so I am
I
really
can't
in
believe
love
that.
with
That
it.
totally blows my mind.
Yeah.
But it makes sense because I'm sure there's a lot of people in the same position as you that aren't really a few fan of that kind of music that have no idea that it's something different. So hopefully
No,
some
and it
people...
just never came up.
Yeah.
It never came up. I didn't buy vinyls back then, and there wasn't really like a community, at least that I was aware of, that, you know, really discussed, stuff of Matt's that was coming out and all this stuff. So I would have had to been, hyper focused on that and really kind of checking every couple months. And I didn't collect vinyl, so it never came up. And I'm so glad that I found it because I just added it to my Matt Berry playlist, and I'm very excited to listen to it more.
Yeah, I mean, I
wasn't
found
that
it...
community till you started it, Tara.
Right.
I'm responsible,
You literally
100%.
started the community. I heard it on Spotify, just going through the catalog, and I was like, what is this little guy? So maybe somebody else will hear it for the first time after listening to this and not realizing it was even there and that it's
I hope so.
a good little guy. I don't know why I said that. So
Good
I'm
little
gonna-
guy. I like it.
I'm gonna give Lost Contact. Do I go with 4.75? I feel like I have to go with 4.75 again, and I only give
Do
it
it.
the 0.25 off because I can't decipher what this could be about. I don't know
I
why
love
that's...
that about it.
I kind of
just-
do, but I kind of don't. I don't know. It confuses me. I think it's confused. It confuses me.
You're too analytical. You just have to sit back,
Yeah.
just enjoy the show.
I don't
Yeah.
know for sure what it's about, but I know the feeling it's describing of just kind of needing to check out for a little, but not in sort of an angsty way, just like peace out for a little bit.
Yeah.
This is a 5 out of 5 for me. It's kind of slight, but I don't know what the song could do better. Like, for what it's setting out to do, it's about perfect.
So
I should have gave it a 5, but the thing is, I haven't listened to it since today, so like I don't feel like I have the love for it that if you asked me in maybe 6 months, I would.
you don't have an emotional
yeah.
connection to it yet.
That's it.
Maybe that's the part that I'm missing. I don't have an emotional connection to it. I really love it, but I don't have an emotional connection to it like I do with some of his other songs. I mean, overall, it's fantastic. I mean, I could defy the laws of maths right now, too, and give it 5 stars. Yeah, you know what? I think I'm going to go with that. I'm going to defy the laws of math and give it 5 stars.
Do it.
Because I feel like it. No other reason.
I feel like
It's our
that doesn't
podcast.
defy the laws of maths.
I
Because
like
it
that we're
gains
saying
extra
maths.
points. Yeah, that's a speech impediment. I can't say THs correctly. So
Oh, yeah.
they
Sorry,
come
that-
out as Fs. Yep. Been like that since I was a kid.
It sounded normal to me.
It did. It sounded like you were, like, just, like, British. I liked it.
Yeah, it sounded
Uh-huh.
totally normal to me. You say it better
Yeah.
than I do. I can't say it.
It honestly, it made you sound fancier. You're just like, I say
Maths.
maths. And I was like, oh, shit, like,
Maybe that's how I
pretty
should say it.
Cool.
It'd be easier to say it that way.
Yeah.
Although, you know what? I currently live in the United States, so I don't really have to think about it, I suppose.
The United States, where you don't have to think about it.
Yes! Oh my god! That should totally be our slogan!
That's our tagline.
Where nobody thinks about nothing.
Leave your brain at the door. Leave your
Hashtag-
brain at the border.
Hashtag Merca.
Music for Insomniacs Part 4 gains at least a few points because of the awesome album art and the photo on the back cover, which has Matt kind of relaxed, feet up in front of a bank of synthesizers reading Lost Girls by Alan Moore, which my husband informs me is the worst Alan Moore book. I tried to
yeah?
sell him on Matt by saying, look, he's reading Alan Moore. You love Alan Moore. And he was like, that's like the worst Alan Moore book. Clearly he has no taste.
Why does this not surprise me that that's the reaction you got to that? That's so funny. So
And
funny.
I bet he
so
rolled his
familiar.
eyes, too.
He rolls his eyes every time I mention Matt.
Yeah.
It's just our pattern at this point.
Oh, friendly banter. Yes, I
Oh,
think it's
yes.
funny because the back cover is so similar to the front. The back cover on the single is very similar to the back cover. They go together on the full album, except for the boots.
Yeah,
He's wearing
except for the
boots on the
shoes.
single.
I would really love to see more outtakes from that shoot.
Yeah, there really
I'm sure
are.
there's more photos of Matt posing in different ways in front of synthesizers, and I'd like to see what those different poses are, and
More of the red Converse.
see more of the red Converse, of course.
That would be cool if we could. Somebody just send us the unedited photos from every album photo shoot. We promise we won't share them with anybody. We'll just look at them ourselves and delete them.
That was
I
like a
don't think
really
that's
subliminal message.
Subtle, Tara.
Really, really subtle. Anyway, I guess that does it for Music for Insomniacs. Does anybody have anything else to say?
We've
I
said
don't
so
think
many
so.
things.
Just that this
We
is
did.
really one of the coolest albums in Matt's discography, and just one of the coolest albums I've heard. And if you haven't listened to it yet, I don't know why the hell you're listening to us, but go track this album down.
Yeah, stop listening. Well, no, finish the episode and then go listen to this album in its entirety. Definitely listen to Lost Contact because you'll love it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
That
So
song's a jam and a half.
it really is. So that's it, though. We'll be back in a few weeks.
What are we doing?
I guess
What are we
Small
doing?
Hours.
No, it's a live
Oh.
album.
We're doing
Very
the live
exciting.
album?
I feel
All
like
right, we
have
got to
to.
debate this among ourselves.
Yeah. We'll
Stay
figure it
posted,
out. You guys will
listeners.
see.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening to our Music for Insomniacs breakdown. I know it probably got a little bit repetitive, but I'm not real sure what else you talk about in an hour-long
Yeah.
instrumental.
We tried our best.
We tried our best. Yes. Once again, you can catch us on all the social media. We are at Obsessed Obscure on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and we also have a Discord channel that is linked on all of our other social media. This is really
Join us
getting...
on Discord. Discord's fun.
And then we'll be back in a few weeks to maybe talk about the live album or possibly talk about something different. That's yet to be determined. But thank you again for listening, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.